Natalie, welcome to the Calm Mom podcast. I'm so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just as excited to be here.
Yeah, we were actually talking a little bit before we hit record about how much we seem to have in common. It's like I just met you a few moments ago, but I'm like, I see so many similarities in our journey and our stories. And I'm also believing probably in our mission and the work that we're doing now, our greater purpose. So I would love it if you would just tell a little bit about yourself to our audience and share where you're at and what you're doing, all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So, I have always been a student of personal development. I have a minor in philosophy. I've just always been interested in sort of life's bigger questions. And
Mm-hmm.
that led me to law school and becoming a lawyer, which, as you know, is not the same as pondering philosophical questions, right?
Oh, if
Um,
only.
Right? Yeah. I had a ton of student loan debt from law school, $206,000. And that led me on a journey to learn about money and kind of combine my tools with everything that was going on in my life, including
Mm.
wanting to start a family. And what I realized was that not only can you listen to awesome podcasts like yours, but you can apply tools to your life and see real change. Like, unlike traditional education, which
Yeah.
obviously going to law school, I'm a huge proponent of that traditional track, but post all of my schooling, I had access to these tools just through my own self education. And when I saw the impact of them on my life,
Mm.
everything from changing careers, I had a career after law. I was a certified financial planner for a few years and then started my own business, which is what I do now as a professionally certified coach for moms. Um, but seeing that possibility and then the possibility with other things like losing
Yeah.
weight. I lost 25 pounds before I even got pregnant with my first. And then
Wow.
post my first and second pregnancy, I lost the 40 pounds each time that I gained. And so much of it was from the tools that I use. And it's not just weight loss and it's not just career, it's time management and just
Yeah.
the way that I approached my life prior to learning these tools was so different. I really thought there was a path. Someone else knew that path. They were going to tell me the path. Someone else had all the answers. And now I know that that is not the case and that you can continue to learn and grow. And of course, you still have challenges, but I feel so much more empowered to navigate my own challenges that come up. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about just helping other women and moms do the same because
Yeah.
I've seen the impact on my life. Like, my life is so different and so much better. I didn't even touch on, I grew up in an alcoholic family and just navigating breaking patterns and cycles. And I have just the most amazing, healthy marriage and family, and my
Praise
house
God.
is calm and wonderful. And that was not the path that I was set up on. And having experienced that, there's nothing like it. And I think that's why I feel so called to help other women experience that in their own way with whatever they're going through.
Wow, man, your why. I'm hearing your story, right? Of your why, and like I can tell why and where it comes from and how it lights you up. It's so powerful to hear that. Don't stop sharing that story
Oh,
because I'm sure there's so many women even listening that can resonate. And it's so funny when you're talking about like there's got to be a path out there, and I want someone to just teach me the path, and then I'll just follow the path. I so relate to that too, especially, and I think part of it is probably why I ended up in law school. And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to because we're like the high achievers, the left brained, like I love rules. Give me a checklist every day and I will like smash the living daylights out of that thing. And just like, but when it comes to our own like healing journeys and, personal development or whatever it is, like, it's not how it works, right? It's like so much of it is messy and so much of it is like it worked for you, but that's not necessarily my story or how I'm wired or like the repatterning I need to work on. So I'm just so curious to hear more about, like you obviously have frameworks within the work that you do, but then you found something that like really resonated and worked for you.
yeah. So I think that kind of underlying that question and just kind of how you summarize so beautifully what I said was kind of this newfound self-confidence and self-trust.
Mm.
Like, I
Yes.
don't think as a
Yeah.
lawyer, quote unquote successful person, if you would have asked me if I need help with self-confidence or self-trust, I would have said yes. And so part of, I think, the challenge with where I was at prior to my journey was just a lack of awareness. I didn't know what I didn't know because,
Yeah.
and I don't think this is a bad thing, but just how we're raised, it's very much outward focused.
Yes.
Our parents answer our questions from a very young age, and then our
Mhm.
teachers do, and then our peers do, and we have mentors and coaches and bosses then, and
Yeah.
we're so trained to look outward for all of the answers that we think that someone else has the answer for how I should live my life. And
That's
I don't
right.
think there's anything wrong with getting that support. I just think we're so far one sided with that. And
Yeah.
so, a huge part of my own journey that no one really sat down and taught me, but that I see as really important and significant to how I
Yeah.
navigate everything in my life is that I really kind of moved over to the middle where I still
Yes.
value the external input, right? I still am a student
Mhm.
of this work always, and coaches and
Yeah.
classes and all the things. But just as much, I rely on myself and my own inner
Yeah.
wisdom. And I know that for me, what it means to be a mom is different. So I'll give you a really small example. I was a social drinker of age, in my 20s and early 30s, and never had a problem with alcohol. But when I thought about my future self as a mom, I just saw her as a non-drinker. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong
Mm.
with drinking. I don't think it's like morally bad or wrong. And I don't think all moms shouldn't drink either. But that was just a personal journey for me. I just saw
Yeah.
myself like when I was in touch with who I wanted to be. She
Yeah.
just didn't drink. And that's going to be very different for someone else who thinks about her future self and she does have a glass of wine here and there, whatever her relationship is with alcohol. But
Yeah.
that's something that I think is just a little example of how I would use my own inner wisdom versus looking for the answer outside of me. Because, if I ask just most of my peer group, if
Yeah.
I should quote unquote drink or not drink, I would get all kinds of answers that would probably lead to me drinking. And not from a peer pressure type of place, but from a like, you don't have a problem with drinking. Why
Yeah.
not? Sort of thing. And for me, being able to access my own desire
Yeah.
and believe in that without needing the external validation was such a
Right.
gift. And I still
Yeah.
give myself permission, like maybe that will change one day.
Sure.
But for
Yeah.
now, this is how I want to live my life. And that inner self trust and self confidence and inner wisdom is something I never would have had but
Mm.
for doing this work.
Oh my goodness, I love this so much. I can relate to so many parts of that story, and I think part of it is that especially as someone who was very comfortable living in her head and was very disconnected from her body, anytime anyone talked about intuition or things like gut feelings or whatever, immediately there was just something in me was like, that's just way too like woo woo for me. Like I don't have time for that, right? Like, and what I didn't realize is that especially as women, we actually have like our intuition's actually, it's a superpower that so many of us are disconnected from. And when we look at the brain science, our brains are actually wired differently than men in the sense that we're wired to have a much quicker connection between our gut and our brain for
Wow.
that gut instinct and that gut feeling and that intuition. So I just love that you're like, yes, I want to hear, what everyone else has to say. And I'm going to self-reference, right? And like look from the inside out and be like, hey, does that feel aligned for me?
Yes.
And when we can learn to grow that inner trust muscle, holy moly, does that bring a whole new level of like freedom and growth and fulfillment and like all the things that we're seeking.
It's so true. I think there's a lot of narrative out there about, I just don't want to care what people think. Right. And
Mm.
what I like to say is, I want to care what people think. I care about my husband. I care about my mom. I care about my
Yeah.
kids. I do care about other people's opinions and thoughts. I just want to
Mhm.
care more about my own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think prior to doing this work at all, we care so much about other people's approval and what they want for us
Mhm.
that we don't have a strong sense of ourselves.
Yes.
And we think that going against the grain or thinking in a way that's contrary to what other people are suggesting for our lives is wrong or somehow bad. And I think a lot of
Mm.
that is just our conditioning and sort of where that people pleasing comes from, wanting to be good, and good is in the eyes of others. But I think when you learn that you are good inside no matter what, and you
Amen.
can still care about what other people think, you just want to
Yeah,
honor what's true for you. And
that's
I
right.
just like to say, care a little bit more of what you think for your own life than other
Yeah.
people.
Yes, and be discerning about whose voice you're listening to,
Right.
right? In
Like,
that in
yeah,
all of that. Yeah, for sure.
right.
My
Like the
husband, yes,
example.
like
Yes, right. Like
next
husband,
door
mother,
neighbor,
that's
maybe not so
right. Or
much.
like the clerk checking out who says
Yeah,
you look tired. Like, let's just not even put that
ain't nobody got
in
time
your
to worry
brain
about
at
that.
all. Right.
Oh, okay. So you were like, our people listening are your people. So I want you to talk to them. We do so much like body-based work here. But the mindset is so, so important. And I never want to like send this message that it's not, because it is. You work with women, you work with moms. I would love to hear a little bit about, and then maybe we can kind of change gears on the flip side, but what are some mindsets or some patterns that you're kind of seeing over and over again with the women that you work with that you find are really either holding women back, keeping them playing small, hindering their growth and what they want to see in their life that they might not even be aware of?
Oh my gosh. I love that you added that last part in, because I do think that's actually the reason that they're feeling stuck, is because the focus is on um, the wrong thing. It's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
let me give you a small example. Let's say that um, your kids are struggling with friends in school. On default, without having done any personal development work, it might be tempting to want to go into what I call like fix it mode. So,
Mhm.
without really listening to your kids or talking with them and hearing really what's going on, what their thoughts are, what their feelings are, and just giving some space to it, and showing
Yeah.
that you believe your kids are capable, you're calling the parents, you're jumping in, you're at the school. And of course,
Oh,
I'm not saying there might not be a time for that, but I think the biggest shift in my clients, the people who kind of like this work that I see, is from a lack of awareness of what the actual cause of the problem is to increased awareness of what the cause of the problem is. Because
so good.
for like we were talking about before we hit record, a lot of your work is body based, and a lot of my work is more mindset based. And the combination I just love. I just absolutely love it. But from most of the work that I do, it's taking a look at, okay, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's something like, how do I get my child to, right? I call it like get my
Mhm.
child mode. If we're like in my, it's just,
So good.
and I think we'll get to this.
Listen
Like
up.
right.
Yeah.
I have this empowered mindset process where I talk about what you can focus on to just empower yourself. Because when you're disempowered, you kind of feel like you're at the effect of your life and you feel stuck.
Mhm.
Sometimes the victim mentality can come up in that as well. And ultimately, it just feels like there's not a way to solve this challenge. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
rumination and not a lot of movement forward to navigate
Yeah.
what's going on. And the actions that you might take from that place just keep you kind of spinning. I call it like thought
Mhm.
looping. You're thought looping a lot.
Mhm.
Maybe you're talking it over and over and over again, or you're trying to take
Yeah.
action, but it's focusing on controlling other people,
That's
focusing on the
right.
problem. And a lot of the work I do is like taking a step back and taking a look at your thoughts so that you can feel so much more capable, so much more confident, so much more empowered. You might not know the ultimate solution for your kids to solve that problem with their friends, but you will show up so much more validating, so much more connected, and
Yeah.
so much more equipped to help them through it, which is ultimately what the desire is. It's, I want to help
Yes.
my child through this. It's just the approach that you might be taking with a lack of awareness is focusing
Yeah.
on things you can't control, versus once you have more awareness of the way you're thinking about it, you're much more likely to kind of let go of the control and
Yeah.
feel more empowered to show up as the mom who you genuinely want to be.
Yes. 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 So on the show, we do talk a lot about the body, but it's the same idea in that I always teach and talk about like awareness always comes first, right? We can't intervene in a world we can't see. Awareness precedes choice, right? We can't even do anything if we're not aware of it. And a through line that I'm hearing and what you're saying, especially about this empowerment piece, it's almost like taking a new look at what can I actually control? Because, right? in that empowerment, it's like, okay, these are the things that I can actually control. And sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow. Like, I can't control my kids as much as I would love to. I can't control my partner as much as I would love to. And so often when we jump into that fix it mode, like, we want to help, we love them, we care. Like, there's a beautiful space behind it. But our approach, without us realizing, I think, is trying to control all of these things that we actually don't have control over.
It's so true. And one part of my work as a coach is to show my clients, like, it's not all or nothing. It's not that
Yes.
either you're in fix it mode doing it for them, or you're the other end of the spectrum is apathy. You're just
Right.
hands off, fine, you handle it. Like, I can't do anything about it. Because I think
Yeah.
that's what our brain naturally goes to. Well, if I can't do it for them, then I can't do
Forget it.
anything. But that's
Mhm.
not true. In the middle is this beautiful space and opportunity for you
Yeah.
to show support. And I'll have clients say to me, I don't know how to do that. And so even just illustrating for them what that might look like, even just asking your kids questions like, how did that make you feel? What were you thinking? Tell me
Yes.
more about that. How do you think we should
Beautiful.
solve this? It's a beautiful
Beautiful.
question. And you might offer ideas, but at least it's more of a collaboration where you're showing you really believe in your child, not
Yeah.
what we inadvertently do when we go into fix it mode is we offer the thought, I don't think you're capable of fixing this. I'll do it
Yeah.
for you.
Right.
And I think that sends the opposite message of our intention, which is to show our kids we believe in them and we're here to support them and help them navigate
Mhm.
challenges, but in a much more collaborative way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also like, I think we underestimate how exhausting it is to try to fix everything for everyone. Like, that's just really exhausting. It's funny that you're bringing this up now too, because I had another podcast recording right before I jumped on with you, and it was just about to get started. And my 7-year-old has like my work cell phone, and she like uses that to, like, I don't know, play her little games while I'm doing stuff like this while I'm working. And she's texting me and she's like, Mom, Ashton, I know they were having some little squabble about something. Ashton said that I don't have a good idea about something. And I don't know, but I was just about to jump on this thing and I texted her back and I'm like, I hear you. I'm jumping into this call. I talked to you about, I can help you in 30 minutes. Until then, I trust that you can figure this out.
I love that so much.
And I was like, well, and I don't know. So much of this is just experimenting, right? I just crossed my fingers and hope that would like make
100%.
it
And
work.
even if, yeah, but even if it doesn't or it gets worse, you're still showing her that you believe in her, and then you could ask her questions and talk with her later about
Yeah.
you know all of the tools, but I love that as a micro example because it's happening all of the time. Even
Yes.
my podcast that came out today was about going on vacation, and I was coaching a lot of moms about just the anxiety that comes up with traveling with children. And we all kind of have that. And yet sometimes I think what we can do is send the message to our kids that they're incapable of
Yes.
handling it.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
in the middle is not that we're going to go to, I kind of call it like toxic positivity, where we think
Yeah.
everything is going to be perfect and amazing. But we also
Mhm.
don't want to go to the opposite end either, where
Right.
everything is going to be doom and gloom. The kids are going to be in the worst behavior. They won't be able to handle anything
Right.
for our own sake, but also the message that we send them in either case isn't helpful. And so I like to kind of
Yeah.
balance that out with what I call, I mean, that's why my brand's called Mom on Purpose. It's like you said, awareness. It's more intention, just being a little bit more intentional with how we're thinking about whatever circumstance we're navigating, whether it's vacations or a little disagreement between siblings or
That's
whatever
it.
it is.
Yeah, that's so good. I know you have this 5-step process for navigating life's
Yeah,
challenges.
let's
Will
talk about
you,
it.
share that, and then we can kind of break it down. I'm sure I'm going to have questions. I love stuff like this. So
Yeah,
teach
so
me.
you already gave a great teaser to one of the steps, which is to focus on what you can control.
Okay.
So I call it my empowered mindset process. And I think that through these 5 steps, you can just take any challenge and just ask yourself if you're doing any of these. Kind of, we'll
Yeah.
talk about the empowered mindset, but then the inverse of it, the disempowered, it's just the opposite of them. And you will be amazed. Even myself, when I use this kind of simple
Yeah.
framework, it's so helpful for me to catch myself. And
Yeah.
it's also helpful for me to see, oh, I don't want to let go of that emotional blame here. So
Mm.
I'll go through the steps and then we can talk
Yes.
about an example I'll use from my life. So number 1 is emotional responsibility. So are you taking responsibility for how you're feeling? Number
Mhm.
2 is, as we said, focusing on what you can control. Number
Okay.
3 is accepting reality. So I like to think of that as like, oh, of course this is happening. So
Yeah.
with going on vacation, it's your kids are fighting. A lot of the mindset is this shouldn't be happening. They should be grateful. They should be appreciative. And we're sort of like rejecting what is.
Mhm.
And it's just not helpful.
Yes.
Number 4 is to be solution focused. So, like I gave with the kids having challenges with friends at school, if you're
Yeah.
just kind of ruminating a lot on the problem without thinking of possible solutions, it just leaves you feeling disempowered. And then the last one is to be fueled by useful emotion. Sometimes that will be positive. I like emotions like self confidence and self trust, but
Yeah.
sometimes it might not be positive. Like if it's a challenge that you want to feel sad about, we can get to clean sadness without frustration, without resistance, right? And so the inverse of that, a disempowered mindset, is when you're in emotional blame, when you're focusing on what you can't control, when you're rejecting reality, when you are problem focused, and when you're fueled by unhelpful emotion, often like scarcity feelings.
Mhm. This is so this is so good. Um, I want to dive into it a little bit more, but before we do, I feel like this is something that most of us, I don't want to say no, but like we've listened to the podcast, we've read the, like we have this like knowing, kind of this outer knowing that we want to do all these things. But man, our patterning runs deep, right? And it's like it can get so frustrating to be like, okay, I hear this and I get it conceptually, but I'm still struggling so much in the moment to like not go back to my old patterns of trying to fix everything, or not getting stuck in like, this despair of like, well, I'm raising these ungrateful kids and this vacation's a mess or whatever it is. So for the people that are listening that are like, I've tried this stuff, or like, I know the mindset I want to have, but I don't know why I'm feeling so much resistance or hesitation to like actualizing it. What are like, how do you help women cross that initial bridge before we kind of talk
Yeah.
about it further?
So I like to use the analogy of taking care of your body and working out. So
Okay.
if you watch a video of how to do a handstand for a yoga pose, I don't know how to do one, but I love this analogy because I watch it and I'm like, I can do that for sure. Like I get it. I see where her arms are. I see the shoulders. I see the heads. I'm like, I could wear that same outfit. I can do this. Right. I'm like, I know it.
Yes.
And then I go to do it. I'm like, there's a glitch. There's a glitch in the matrix. Something has gone wrong. This isn't working. And doing this work is just like that. And so
So
if I spend 30 days practicing a handstand, I might not have it at the end of 30 days, but I'm going to be
yeah.
a lot further along than day 1.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
it's really just remembering that your body has to remember it,
Yep.
because you probably have decades of remembering how to yell at your kids. So
Yes.
I think a large part of that, you use the word frustration, and I coach my clients all the time on this. It's like getting out of that frustration. So you just remember, oh yeah, I'm a human being. Of course this
Mm.
is happening. So you're having so much
Mhm.
more self-compassion and grace with yourself, not
Yeah.
just because that's feels good, which it does feel better than being mad at yourself, but also because I truly believe that's the only way to develop the skill. If you hate
Yeah.
yourself because you can't do the handstand, because you can't stop yelling at the kids, you're actually much less likely to get up the next day and practice the handstand, or to practice the new thoughts when you're in that moment when your kids are fighting and normally you would yell. It takes a lot of discipline and
Yeah.
willingness to do that. And I just like to remind myself, like, the work is never done. Just
Mhm.
like having a
Mhm.
body. Even if
Mhm.
I learn to do the handstand, or let's do push-ups, right? Whatever physical conditioning that I'm doing to take care of my body, as long as I have a healthy human body, I
Yeah.
want to do that. I might
Right.
switch different workout routines or how I'm working out my body, but as long as I have a body, I want to take care of it. And just because I know how to take care of it doesn't mean I get to stop taking care of it. And so the same is true with like the inner work on your mind and your spirit, because um, it's a lifelong practice. As long as you have a healthy, functioning human brain, you're always going to have the primitive part of your brain that
Yeah.
really has some patterning that isn't useful for modern motherhood, today's world. And so you want to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And what that means is when your kids are fighting and you feel triggered, that's painful. And so you would much
Yeah.
rather yell to get them to stop immediately or grab a cookie to take the edge off of that emotional pain. And like we talked about, if you're not aware that that's what's happening, you're probably going to try to solve for the wrong thing, when
Yeah.
really it's what's going on internally for you. And I just like to reiterate how understanding that really provides motivation
Mhm.
to continue doing the work. Like, I'm having fun doing the work. I don't use it to beat myself up. I'm like, oh yeah, I snapped at my husband. Let's take a look at what that was about so that
Yeah.
I can learn more about myself, so that I can learn and grow for me and for the benefit of my marriage and for the benefit of my husband, of course, as well.
Yes. And that's the mindset, right? It's like that's the mindset that will like propel all the other mindsets, is just that openness and that growth and that curiosity and playing around with it. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, I think that's not talked about enough, particularly with moms, because we have
Yeah.
so much pressure that we've been socialized to think about ourselves to be a good mom. And a lot of times we mistakenly look outward for that. We look to see what, the mom next door is doing. So the comparison, we look for validation from our kids, which doesn't
Yeah.
come, depends on the moment, right? It never comes in the way
I
we
know.
want it.
Yeah.
And so what we're left with is sort of, we don't have any standards for what it means to be a good mom. And then we use that against ourselves.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we beat ourselves up with that because we're not perfect and we're not supposed
Mhm.
to be perfect. I like to say you're the exact mom your kids are supposed to have. And
That's right.
just like they're learning skills, you're learning skills as well. And
Yeah.
modeling that and being open about that, that's, where repair comes in handy, can be so powerful and helpful.
Yes. I'm going to steal that handstand example too,
It's
because it's so good. Because I heard for years this idea of like something becoming embodied, right? I want to embody this. And I never really like, it's one of those things I heard and I'm like, I don't understand what people are talking about. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about until I started like doing new work. And I'm like, this is so hard. This is so hard. This is so hard. And then on day like 72, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just did it without thinking.
That's
Oh,
right.
it's embodied now. Like my body actually knows how to do this without me having to like struggle and force it and focus so much. And it comes through that repetition, and it comes through that consistency, and it comes through that self-compassion. And I love that that's like the base you're teaching all of this from, because change is just hard.
That's right.
Even though we know it's good, it's so hard.
Mhm.
So to like focus on that progress, to focus on the gain, right, instead of the gap. It's that I love all of that.
Yeah. When I think back to the transitions I made in my life, even just quitting practicing law to become
Yeah.
a financial planner and then a coach, the amount of anxiety and negative thoughts that I had was so great.
Mm,
But I call it like putting it in the back seat, because
yeah.
my decision that I made from my clear minded self was that I wanted to do this. And so I didn't
Yeah.
make those negative emotions mean anything. I just knew that the brain is terrified of change. It would rather repeat old patterns, even if they're not serving us anymore. And so just being willing to be uncomfortable for
Yeah.
my long term future was a skill that I learned that I think led me to live a much bigger life and continues to do so.
Ooh, so good. Something that I've been telling myself in that same vein too, especially with nervous system work, is I'm always reminding myself that uncomfortable doesn't mean unsafe.
I
Because
love
I am
that.
uncomfortable all the time, but I have to remind my body that it doesn't mean I'm unsafe. It just means we're doing something new, and that is uncomfortable.
It's so
But it
true.
doesn't mean I'm unsafe. Same thing with our kids. We talk a lot about emotions, and I kind of want to touch on this because I've never heard it phrased like you were talking about a few minutes ago, and I kind of want to hear more about it. You were talking about sadness in particular, but I think it can apply to a lot of our emotions. We tend to put labels, I think, right? Like this is a good emotion, this is a bad emotion, this is whatever. But you talked about how we can like do it cleanly. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So I try to avoid the good and the bad labels, particularly because um, I don't find them useful. So instead, I like to use labels like, are they helpful or not?
Yeah.
So is an emotion helpful for you? So my dad passed away a few years ago, and I wanted to feel
Mm.
grief and sadness.
Yeah.
That was helpful. Those emotions were helpful for me and my spirit to
Yeah.
navigate that. I wanted to feel that. To me, that's a very clean emotion, even though it's kind of uncomfortable. It's,
Yes.
not a happy emotion. It's a quote unquote negative emotion, but it was helpful. It's part of the rich, deep human experience. Now,
Yeah.
if I had taken that and added on thoughts like, this shouldn't be happening, he's never going to get to know my kids, he died too young, if he would have made different life decisions, this wouldn't have been his fate. Why me? If I would have added on any of those thoughts, now not only do we have the sadness and the grief, but we have resistance, we have frustration, we have rejecting reality.
Yeah.
And if any of that worked, I would say have at it. It just makes the experience so much worse. I kind of like to separate out the difference between just being in pain and suffering, right? We've heard this before.
Yeah.
But to me, I think of those added layers of resistance, of rejecting reality, as suffering, added suffering that's not necessary. So I don't know why my dad was an alcoholic. I don't know why he made the decisions that he did. And I like to tell myself that was his journey. That was his spirit's journey. And there's so much peace that I have. Now, I still had the pain of sadness and grief that I want to experience as a daughter who lost her dad.
Yeah.
And that provided me so much growth and freedom to like move forward after that in a way that was helpful for me.
Wow, that's beautiful. And that's such an example of something like so deep. Like that's really deep and it's really beautiful. But I can also see how that shows up kind of like in this insidious little way, probably very often in our parenting and in our relationships and in, our marriages. Like think about things like the mental load, like, yes, we are exhausted, but then like, how do we express that in a clean way where it isn't disempowering or like we're not in victim or however it shows up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it shows up in like, I illustrated a bigger life example, like the death of a parent, but also just in the everyday life. And it's so easy to feel like we're at the effect of our lives. I don't know why. I think it's just our patterning from growing up. It's how we've been socialized. It's there. And I think of just little examples, like when my first son was born and all of his night wakings. And then of course, hearing of my girlfriends with babies who are sleeping through the night and all of the thoughts like, this isn't fair. Why is this happening to me? I don't want to get up. And I use this process. I said, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated and I'm blaming it on my newborn. and I am focusing on what I can't control, which is making him sleep.
Yeah.
I am rejecting reality. I think thoughts like, this shouldn't be happening. I'm not being solution focused because I'm in this sort of victim mentality about it. And I'm kind of being fueled by negative emotion that's unhelpful.
Yeah.
So once I realized that, I just first gave myself some space to be a human. Like, okay, I see what's going on here. It's a brand new circumstance. So even though I do this work, it's like when you have a brand new circumstance, like a new baby or anything, you can move to a new city or just anything new, the brain does what it does. It typically goes to some version of feeling disempowered. And I just love having a tool like this because once I realized that I was kind of in this disempowered thinking, it was a lot easier for me to just take those 5 elements and ask myself what I could most easily shift. And what I realized was my most painful thought was thinking that I had to get up with him. And I didn't want to. And that wasn't true. I actually wanted to be a mom who got up with her newborn. It was just a lot harder than I thought.
Wow. Yeah.
And just that thought alone was so freeing. Oh, I want to get up because the truth is, like, I have God-given agency. There's no one forcing me out of my bed.
Right.
I want to get up. And darn it, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. And that, like giving myself that validation, like helped me. I just immediately stopped blaming my son. And that's, I think, where we as moms so easily can compare our kids to other kids. I really try to have tunnel vision and just whatever my kids are going through, I just normalize it. I'm like, it doesn't matter if everyone tells me otherwise, like, because there's an upside to that. where I feel much more empowered and capable to navigate it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
did it make my son sleep differently? No, but it reduced all of that negativity that was fueling
Yeah.
me. And so I like
Yeah.
to say there's tired, but then what emotion are you layering onto that? Is it I'm tired and now I'm mad? Or
Yeah.
is it I'm tired and I'm content? Because the
Wow.
tired's there either way. But if you can
Yeah.
remove the layer of frustration, it's so helpful. And again, like you
Wow.
said, let's get support and advocate for ourselves. But I think that actually comes from feeling capable. I
Yeah.
don't think it comes from blame and looking for someone, which is another kind of victim mentality, looking for someone
Mhm.
to save you. And I am like the queen of self pity that I'm always working on. Like, okay, no one's coming. I'm the
Yeah.
one. And I'm always so grateful that I'm the one because you work through it. You work through your own stuff and you realize you're so much more capable than you think.
Mm. This is going to help some people. I'm
I hope
like
so.
sitting here and I'm like, I wish someone had explained that to me 7 years ago when my, 10-month-old still wasn't sleeping through the night and I just hated everyone and everything. And it was so hard.
That's right. And you have to kind of protect your mindset. So I have a little one who's one and took a lot longer to he mostly sleeps through the night now. But really, when other people tell me about their kids who are sleeping through the night, I say, don't tell me that. And I'm partly serious because it's just so unhelpful for me. And they're, of course, it's never ill-willed, it's never malicious.
Yeah.
They always have the best intentions. And also, I just know for me, like constraining what input I allow into my mind only makes it easier for me to manage my mind. I used to want to know everything everyone was thinking, like about me, about my kids, about everything. And I realized like that only makes it harder for me to think more deliberately and consciously. So I really try to limit,
Mm.
in a purposeful way, but
Yes.
in a very intentional way so that I can manage my mind and show up as the mom that I want to be.
Come on. That's so wise. I love that. Okay. So for the people listening that are like, I love this. I get this. I hear this. It's like resonating so deep in my soul. And I want to hear more from Natalie. Tell everyone where they can find you. And then I know obviously your podcast, tell them about your podcast, and then your coaching and whatever you've got going on.
Yeah, if you just go to momonpurpose.com, you will see me and everything I have there. And my podcast, since you're a podcast listener, is Mom on Purpose with Natalie Bacon.
Awesome. And guys, we're actually, after we end this recording, going to switch and Natalie's going to interview me for her show. So I'll make sure to link that actually in our show notes here so you guys can then go listen to our conversation and check out Natalie's podcast, Mom on Purpose. Natalie, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been so good. I feel encouraged and I also feel like it all comes from a place of not like Pollyanna pie in the sky, like we can do everything and it's rainbows and butterflies, but like these are some real practical tools that are really going to make a big difference in your quality and enjoyment of your motherhood experience if you put them into practice. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been an honor.